Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Email me directly at tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing the original reference of Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo, the 5402. This is a B-series watch, so made between 1976 and 1979. It is exactly as designer Gerald Genta intended it, and it is from the first decade of Audemars Piguet's foremost watch. So, it is 39 millimeters in diameter by 7.3 millimeters thick, 48 millimeters from lug to lug. We'll throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. We'll get a sense of how it fits. It fits flush. These watches are almost a millimeter thinner than the current Royal Oak Jumbos because of monoblock case construction and solid case backs, so they will fit underneath any dress cuff. The watch does wear broader than its rated diameter. These always wear more like 41s than 39s. All the same, I can envision this watch wearing well on a wrist as small as 13.5 to 14 centimeters circumference. Now, taking a quick look at the bracelet with a note about these bracelets. Normally, they're so ropey, ragged, stretched, and worn that I can pull them straight down out of the lugs. Literally, just pull them straight down. See that little arc or curvature right there? That means that a combination of the inner lug, the end links, and the bracelet prevent it from being pulled straight down, so that stiffness or resistance is actually a great sign for the condition of the bracelet and the case, because it means a lot of the original tolerances are intact and you can't simply pull it in unnatural ways that the designers did not intend. So this is an outstandingly preserved case and bracelet, and they were built right from the beginning. You can see the end links are held in by screws and bars, more secure then and now than spring bars. Gerald Gent, the designer of the watch, considered himself a jewelry designer first and foremost, so his idea was a bracelet that a man could wear, integrated case, lug, and yes, links, but with a timepiece thrown in. Now, the timepiece also includes a lovely link taper. There is beveling along the shoulder of the case, and it continues along the shoulders of the links, satinated across the top, charting the changes over the years in Royal Oak Jumbos. I recently reviewed a 5402 first A series that was one of the earliest ever made. That was one of the first 200 ever manufactured. So that would have featured the Gay Frère bracelet with the GF logo internally. This has the AP logo internally, and this was right around the time Rolex bought Gay Frère, so you wouldn't see it anymore on AP now. The much earlier Royal Oak that I reviewed with the diamond index style, that also said Audemars Piguet on the clamshell lock for the clasp. This says AP, so this is a later example of a 70s Royal Oak. That's how you can always tell from the clasp and the lock itself. Now, taking a quick turn to the watch itself, we have a lot to love. The case is remarkably crisp. You can see the metal is full and even from side to side. The bevel is sharply defined, and so is the break between satin and polishing. As we roll around, you can see the hexagonal crown, unbranded, that's correct, and then a lightly expressed bezel gasket, which has always been a subtle styling feature of these watches. The very outermost face of the bezel is satinated, then has a large rounded polished edge, and then the top is vertically satinated with white gold bezel bolts in hexagonal form inset. Designer Gerald Genta had the vision of a vintage diving helmet on your wrist, so that's where this rounded octagonal form came from. Now, I will make one note about the bezel. You can see that the white gold bolts actually stand slightly proud of the bezel. The bezel does have some wear over the years from being used as well as refinished. Bezels are a service item at Audemars Piguet. They periodically get replaced. Aesthetically, this looks outstanding, but I do believe that as a Royal Oak connoisseur, you're watching this and wondering about those bolts, and yes, they do protrude a little bit, so if you wished, you could get the bezel replaced down the line, or you could continue wearing it just as you see here, and it would look absolutely gorgeous. Regardless, we have a dial that is spotless. This is as good as it gets. Original tritium, white gold hands, white gold indices, white gold AP logo, dark blue galvanized cut on a pantograph. This is the Petite Tapisserie, or the small hobnail. It has over 20,000 little dots. You can see the large hobnails, but you can also see that there are tiny marks over and in between them. A pantograph is a 19th century mimicry lathe that made these dials then and still makes these dials today. It takes a big template with all the hobnails hobnails and all the little bumps and details and undulations, and it transcribes them from the big model onto a tiny brass disc, and that disc becomes the dial. So the pantograph, a very old school way of making a dial distinctive of the Royal Oaks. We have a date disc, and the way you change the date on this watch is you back from 10 p.m. through midnight back and forth, and you ratchet the date forward. So that's how that works. Turn the watch over, you can see this is B series. And you can see that there's been some refinishing over the years on this caseback, but you'll also note that the caseback bolts are still deeply recessed in the caseback. So while there is wear, the metal remains voluminous, full, and correct. Now it's a monoblock case, so you can see how the caseback joins with the midcase. This is something AP has designed out of the modern jumbos. AP did it to make the watches cheaper to manufacture. This is the way Genta envisioned it, to maximize the thin profile and water resistance. So the watch is a front loader. The dial and the movement load in from the front. The movement is Audemars Piguet 2121. The base caliber is 2.4 millimeters thick. It was JLC designed as the 920 Bausch, designed as a raw movement for the Holy Trinity, Patek, AP, and Vacheron in 1967. AP, Patek, and Vacheron used this movement on their sports watches through the 70s. This movement is gorgeous. It's 36 jewel unidirectional automatic winding. It has a 40-hour power reserve, a semi-quickset system, and it beats at a very vintagey 19,800 vibration per hour rate. And even when you add the date, the whole movement assembly is only 3.05 millimeters thick, one of the thinnest automatics of its era, and still competitive today. It's also beautifully finished, though admittedly inside this case you are not going to see it, but you know it looks good. The timepiece you see here is an outstanding example of history preserved. It is not perfect. It did not come out of a time capsule, but it is wearable. It is beautifully made, finished, preserved for posterity. This is one to wear, one to hand down as an heirloom. And frankly, if you're a monuments man and you need the big watch from each big brand, this is going to be your Audemars Piguet. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.